Hello and welcome back to CEO.CA's Inside the Boardroom. My name is James Fedham and today I'm joined by Rory Quinn, President and CEO of Yukon Metals. They trade on the CSE under the ticker YMC and the Frankfurt Exchange under the ticker E770. Rory, it's great to see you today.
Thanks for having me, James.
So let's kick things off. Yukon Metals, brand new story. Can you give us a bit of a company summary, an elevator pitch?
Yeah. So Yukon Metals is based on 30 years of prospecting by the Birdall family in the Yukon, obviously. The Yukon is really the final frontier, the last frontier in North America for exploration. It's stunningly underexplored. That can be seen recently with Snowline Gold's district scale discovery and now resource of, I think, some 7 million ounces of gold. And this company is only 3 years old. They were advanced. Snowline was floated as the primary gold assets in the Birdall portfolio, whereas Yukon Metals represents the copper, gold, silver, lead, zinc, and critical metals portfolio. So this is, I think what really interests me about the portfolio is my background prior to this for 7 years is with Wheaton Precious Metals. We did roughly $6 billion worth of transactions during my time there. And that company, really the gold and silver content at Wheaton Precious Metals was from copper, gold projects and silver, lead, zinc projects. One of the company makers of Wheaton was Zinkgruvan, a Lundin asset in Sweden. That was a zinc mine, but produced a huge amount of silver. And another asset is Peñasquito, that people think of as was Goldcorp mine before it was a Newmont mine. People think of it as a gold mine, but it produces a huge amount of silver. Wheaton had roughly 25% of the silver content at Peñasquito, which represented anything from 5 to 8 million ounces of silver per year, and that's just 25% of the silver. And Peñasquito is actually a zinc mine, primary zinc mine, but just produces so much gold and silver. So very familiar with just the amount of precious metals that can be produced as part of these large copper, gold, silver, lead, zinc projects, and the value that can be created by them.
Great. Thank you so much for that overview and interesting to hear some of your background in the industry. Can you walk us through the property portfolio that you've assembled? I understand that there are kind of 5 key projects here. Can you walk us through each of them and maybe also how you came to acquire them?
Yeah, that's right, James. So five key assets. I would say Expo, which is silver, lead, zinc. Star River is carbon replacement, and AZ is copper, gold porphyry potential. And then at Talbot and Birch, that's more of primary gold and some copper, gold, silver. So we're working now on the permitting process, on outreach and permitting. We are permitted at Expo and Star River, and we're currently working on the permitting process at Birch, Talbot, and AZ. We raised $15 million to advance these properties and started listing June 3rd on the CSE, subsequently listed on Frankfurt, and will be listed in the US here pretty shortly under the ticker YMMCF.
Great. Thank you very much for that overview. You mentioned that the Yukon are one of the last kind of great unexplored frontiers for mineral exploration. Can you walk us through what's the upside and what's the potential for these projects, both in terms of copper, gold, and silver, lead, zinc exploration?
Well, the potential is for multiple discoveries, right? I think that's again, these are early stage greenfield projects at this stage, much the same as Snowline was 3 years ago. Snowline, as mentioned, has developed this district scale gold project at valley. But 3 years ago, there wasn't a drill hole into any of the successes that they've currently had. They were trading at roughly 3 years ago, roughly 50 to 60 cents. With a group of fabulous projects from the Birdall portfolio. And now with working those, doing the targeting intelligently and systematically, doing the drilling, they're now trading in the $5 to $6 range in 3 years. So that's been a wonderful investment for people that got in early on that company.
Thank you very much for that overview, Rory. I do want to talk a little bit about a recent transaction. You doubled the land position at the AZ and Talbot properties. Can you walk us through what that means for the projects there?
Yes, absolutely. So we didn't rest on our laurels when we were working through the transaction, and while we were still private, waiting on closing the Birdall portfolio, we staked around those key assets. AZ is already a large land package, but we staked all the way around our area of interest. We feel like it's best not to have neighbors too close to us. We feel really strongly about that land package, so we wanted to increase our presence. And the same around Talbot. We really like that property for its gold potential and copper and silver. And it was prudent to tie up the land around there. So what we ended up doing is doubling the size of our total portfolio from roughly 18,000 hectares to 36,000 hectares. And so that's been a real focus of the company, as well as getting into the communities, consulting ahead of permitting and then working on the permitting. And so we've done all of that in the last couple of months while we were simultaneously working on the transaction and raising the capital and closing the transaction.
Thank you very much for that overview, Rory. And always good to not have any neighbors, as you mentioned, with the doubling of that land package. Sounds like it's certainly been a busy time for Yukon completing that transaction as well as the listing. Can you walk us through the team at Yukon? Who are the kind of key members of that team and also on the board?
The chair of the company is Patrick Burke, former head of capital markets at Canaccord. He's brought a lot of experience and the network of contacts to our group. Canaccord were also a huge part of the raise that we did, and we look forward to working with Canaccord closely in the future. Daryl Clark is a PhD level geologist and geoscientist and economic geology, and he's a senior VP of corp development at ISO Energy. He's been very valuable from the technical side. Dan Vickerman is a longtime banker and sales desk head of sales in Europe, and so has worked for multiple groups over there and really helped advise our European marketing institutionally over there. And Jim Coates is our other director, and Jim is from Whitehorse, born and raised, and he will help head up our presence in Whitehorse and will help us out with logistics strategy on the management side at the executive vice president level. But Jim is very valuable there in knowing the communities, knowing the exploration side of the business, what's possible, and where it's possible, and at what time it's possible.
Can you tell us a bit more about that upcoming work with your new VPX?
Yeah, and as we start with Helena joining us and getting her arms around the properties, Helena will spend a lot of time in a helicopter visiting all of the properties. Certainly, they're the sort of core 5 properties that I referred to earlier. So her and Ron Birdall will rack up some miles in a helicopter and go to all the various properties, bang rocks, and really she'll have an opportunity to soak up the knowledge that Ron has built over the years and really get a sense from him, from given how intimate he is with those assets, and how he would prioritize them. And really what he sees, because there's a bit of art and science that goes into this. Ron is obviously one of the best prospectors out there, and so we look forward to him being able to share his knowledge with our exploration team.
I want to talk a bit more about the year ahead. Can you give us a sense of through now to the end of 2024, What can people expect from Yukon Metals?
Yeah, it's quite a tight field season in the Yukon relative to the weather. So we'll work consistently through September, and I think there's some things we'll be able to do through winter with some techniques that we'll be able to work with soil sampling and other geochemistry and geophysics that we'll be able to work with. Jim, as I mentioned on our board, is a specialist in the exploration space and runs his own exploration company and has a lot of modern techniques that can work well into the winter season. As mentioned, we're permitting at AZ, Birch, and Talbot. I expect that it's going quite well. We've already done our consultation, so I expect to be permitted at all 5 of our key assets. So we'll be active. We are already permitted at Expo and Star River, and we'll be sharing plans with the market there quite soon. And so a lot of what we'll be doing is targeting work, right? Using the database that we have from the Bird Oil portfolio is really doing the work to intelligently target and prioritize where we should be spending our efforts, where the low-hanging fruit is, where we have the most information at our disposal that we can use to make impactful exploration work, create value for our investors.
What's the vision behind Yukon Metals? Where do you see the company being in several years' time? And why is now a good time for investors to be paying attention?
Well, we think there's the potential for multiple significant discoveries here, right? And I think we've had a good time of it in the market. It's just we've just begun. We started trading on June 3rd. I think we've just now gotten into the Frankfurt exchange. So we'll be supporting that with marketing in Germany and German-speaking countries. We'll be on the OTCQB before too long here. So we'll open up that U.S. market. So really, it's weird, like we're doing here. We're really just starting to get out and tell the story. There's not a lot of people know about Yukon Metals yet. So I think we're trading here roughly about 70 cents, 75 cents. I think that represents an opportunity to kind of get in on the ground floor with a company like this, with the pedigree that Yukon Metals has early in its development, similar to where Snowline were a few years ago. Right? Obviously now that is a primary gold portfolio, but copper, gold, silver, lead, zinc, I think is a really good place to be. We're very bullish on copper, and we really like gold, silver, and zinc as well.
Right, well, Rory, sounds like there's exciting times ahead for Yukon Metals. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, James.